This conference will now be recorded.
All right, awesome. We are back. It's what day is today? Thursday. Um, we are back, and we're gonna, like I said, Brian and I are gonna get together at least minimum one time a week. If we can make it 2 times, awesome. There's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of different things being pulled in different directions. So we just hope to at least give you one major content per week: how to work on your body, how to collaborate with other professionals, how to, more importantly, work on yourself during this time of being in quarantine, this coronavirus. So today's big issue that we're going to hammer is the hips, and the hips are really important to our health. And Brian is an expert about hip-driven movement. We've had an amazing time with being able to, consult and collaborate on different athletes. And what's neat about Egoscue, in my opinion, as a chiropractor, is that when I work with an Egoscue practitioner or I use the Egoscue exercises in my own practice and with my athletes, is that it helps. Basically, it's like flossing. So it helps my job as the doctor when I give an adjustment, when I actually do some type of treatment, that it helps it last, number one. More importantly, it gives the responsibility back to the patient for you at home how to take hold of your life. So Brian, real quick, because you are the hip-driven guy, I mean, your hip-driven movement, that's what you talk about, it's what you preach, it's what Pete Egoscue's always preached. Let's break down the hips a little bit, and then we'll go over what are we going over 3 exercises?
Yeah, there are a couple exercises, and I have some stuff drawn on here already with static back, which is what we talked about the other day. Looking at this from let's explain just real quick the hip-driven, the mantra that I've been, pushing as a company for so long. The idea behind it is that if I go to get up out of this chair, or everybody who's watching this can realize the next time they get off the toilet, I hope you have toilet paper, God forbid, right? But next time you go to get off the toilet, you'll notice that your arms go right to your thighs or onto something else to help you get up from a chair versus being able to just get up from the chair. We've lost that instinctive, primal, simple movement based on the hips shutting down. Now, practitioners that you and I speak with all over the world would say, well, it's because sitting is the new cancer, sitting's the new smoking, sitting's bad for you. Hey, guess what, guys? Sitting's not going anywhere. It's going nowhere. In fact, right now we're doing it even more, which we all know, as they do. The question is, can we change our view of sitting? So yeah, we're going to treat sitting as a sport. We're going to train our hips to sit better, just like throw better, just like sit on the toilet better, just like drive my car better, just like go for a walk with my dog better. So we're going to get your body to a point where you're viewing the golf swing, the baseball, the tennis, when we finally can get outside and start interacting with people again. Shooting a basketball is a hip-driven. We've got to reestablish that. So one of my favorite tests, Sean, that, since being around TPI for so long and being on that advisory board, what I learned a long time ago when Lance and Jason and I were talking about this, when someone lines up and they're going, okay, here's my golf stance. Remember, guys, I'm not the golf expert. Okay, let's bottom line, that's it. So maybe what you can do, Sean, is get up with the golf club. Can you put yourself in that position? When we're here and we're asking very simply for the shoulder to be able to move while the hip is stable, or the hip to be able to move while the arms and shoulder are stable, that simple disassociation test is really the ability to say, can Sean pick up that golf club, set himself up in his fine iron stance, and create movement from the hip to drive the ball?
And that's a really key thing here, is that being able to control your upper and lower body in the rotational sports such as golf, tennis, baseball, softball, lacrosse, but then in basic human life, having this core control is a very important aspect to life, period. Whether you're picking up groceries, whether you're picking up your kid, whether you're going to do anything. This is an area that kind of gets misunderstood and overlooked a lot of times because people will come in and be like, oh, I got low back pain, and the practitioner only focuses on that low back pain. They don't go to look at the joint above or joint below. And one thing that I think has been really profound to me over the years is one test that I want you guys to do at home right now is to kind of stand up straight. We call this basically a toe tap test. And I want you to put 1 foot length away. So you're going to put the heel of your foot into the basically center of the other foot. Then you're just going to go 1 foot length away. Now, with this, you're going to put your hands on your hips. You're going to see if you can pick up your toe and come to the midline. So if you had, let's say you had a bat or you have golf club, or you got something else, can you touch that without your hips moving? So keeping the hips where they are, and if you need to, you have somebody at home hold your hips. Can you come in and touch them? If you can't and you feel like you're being restricted or you've got some type of physical limitation going on, that's affecting internal rotation. So we're turning in. So whether you're in the golf swing and we need to turn into the hip, or you're in baseball and we need to load into the hip, or we're in tennis where we need to get into our ready stance and we're in our unit turn, these are all really important concepts to perform.
Or Sean, you're bending over to pick your kid up off the floor. It's all the same. You said it perfectly. These kind of things are absolute markers for somebody to say, is my body moving in normal daily activities versus, oh, these guys are just talking about athletes. Well, I'm sorry. Every one of you has an athlete inside of you. We just have to wake it up a little bit.
Exactly.
And what better time than now? What else are you doing?
Hopefully you're going to take advice and you're going to start doing some of these exercises. And more importantly, like, our goal isn't to sit here and bash you for not being able to move well. Hopefully when you're doing these screens that we're showing you, that you're seeing, hey, this is a red light, like I can't move well. And by doing these exercises, I'm hoping you come out of quarantine more healthy than when you came in. So Brian, take it from there. Take us through like basically an assessment from the Agastu practitioner side. I'll say it from the chiro, like PT side, and then we'll tie it in with the exercise and what they can do at home.
Great. The idea behind this entire thing is something very simple. Tell me if that's visible.
We can see that, yeah.
I'm going to sign this at the bottom because it's one of one. So I want to make sure.
Yeah, are we going to give it to somebody?
High quality art. Yeah, maybe the most intelligent question we get off of this, they get this signed piece of art, which is amazing. But if you look at the blue structure, this is a hand-drawn, very simplistic idea of what the body should look like, with the ankle, the knee, the hip, the shoulder, and the ear vertically aligned. That would give us the natural S curve with the 3 C curves, you know, the lumbar curve, the thoracic curve, and the cervical curve. Meaning, if you want your spine to be a movable, spring-loaded system instead of a rigid forward head and rounded position, then what we have to do is we've got to reestablish the correct tilt from left to right. Meaning, very simply, when you look in the mirror, just like Sean was giving you, put your hands on your hips and do the toe touch test. If you put your hands on those 2 little bones in the front, they should actually be level in the mirror. If you were standing there in your underwear or bathing suit, you would actually see that maybe one is lower than the other. Maybe there's a pelvic girdle shift or whatever might be going on, or that rotation. Little things like that are simple to tell you what kind of day you're going to have when you go for a run or something like that. When we get out of sequestering, or you're out there just social distancing for a run by yourself, ideally, if you can see that your body in the red position is in an adaptive movement that it's made, and compensations have kicked in because the dysfunction took over. We talked about this exercise the other day, static back. And again, it's a game changer. If somebody said, is that a hip-driven movement? It's 100% a hip-driven movement by changing the thoracic spine to a better position, allowing that psoas to become the major balancer and turn on like a light switch, like a circuit breaker. And the exercises that I'm going to show you today are specifically based on changing the way the leg is rotating in the hip joint, just like you said with the toe touch test. But we're going to move the pelvis first, because I get so many people, if you could just say that this is your femur bone coming up and this is the head of the femur sitting in the garage, like this is the car pulling in the garage of the pelvis. If the pelvis is tilted and the car is rotated, you're going to pull in your garage and everything's going to be torn apart. You would never park your car that way, but yet we walk around every day like that and we don't even know it. So that's the fundamental change that has to happen. Is you can go to the dentist, they tell you what's wrong, but if you don't brush and floss, then you're going to go back and have that again. So I'm pleading with you, just give yourself the best chance, especially now, because what else are you doing, to do some of these exercises and say, hey, Sean, Brian, this is what I felt with this. Is it good or bad? Hit us back with questions and try to interact, because we're learning off of you guys what we're going to be presenting sooner or later down the road.
And I think that's a really good segue into how this supports me as a practicing sports chiropractor. Because if you're just coming in and I'm adjusting and I'm not giving you a corrective exercise, or you're not doing the homework at home and flossing the teeth, then we're going to continue to see that GME. We're going to continue to see those problems coming back and back and back and back. And I don't want us to be a used car salesman where we're just, having you come back in, come back in, come back in. The big thing is I want to give you tools so that way you can be not only a professional in your sport, but a professional in life. So with that, like, take us through the first exercise, Brian.
Okay, so let me move my computer. Do you mind?
Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm in my office, but I'm going to take you to the foyer over here. I want you to think about, did I say that? Foyer, whatever. So in this position, you want to basically be sitting on the floor, and can you sit on the floor with your legs locked out, like just like relaxed down in a position that's not like this, where you're back like that. So I'm assuming a lot of people might be starting in this position rather than having that ability to actually hinge forward and sit on the sits bones underneath here. So remember, if you can't, there's no judgment. I'm expecting you not to be able to do this correctly right away. To help you, you're going to put your hands back behind you on the floor like this and kind of just rest on them as if you were at the beach watching your kid run around in the ocean. And the first move we're going to make, Sean, is a forward tilt of the pelvis. But it's not going to be what we talked about the other day. It's not going to be the chest lift where all the weight goes onto my hands even more. It's going to be, let me lighten the load on my hands by rolling my body forward like this to where I almost don't even have to hold on. So you might get some cramping.
From here, not from here.
That's correct. So your hands are back here. Just get relaxed and watch this yellow zipper. You're just going to go from here to here. The torso is moving as the pelvis is creating that mobility in the lumbar spine. So we're holding this position, and then we're going to do this. Get your feet wide enough apart. Keep that held. Tighten the quads, toes back, and then windshield in, and then windshield out. Now this position right here, the knees want to bend. Keep them locked out at the hip. On the quads, rotate in and out 20 times each direction. So that's 1, 2, 3. Keep going while I'm talking here.
Now, Brian, tell them what they might be feeling and what they should and what's good and what's bad, what's a red flag.
If it's,
I think it's important because some people will be like, oh, I'm feeling this right here. Like, talk to them what they might be feeling.
Yeah. Look, you're going to feel it back here. Look, if Sean and I are feeling this, you're going to feel this. So I can lock my legs out. My heels actually come up that 8-degree lift when you tighten up your quads and pull your toes back in the physical therapy world. It happens. My knees will move correctly. But as I roll my pelvis forward, I've moved the bone this direction, which lengthens this muscle even more. You're going, oh my gosh, the back of my legs. If it's too much, then back your hands up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can actually literally be sitting like this, roll your pelvis forward, and do this motion until that tissue, fibrotic lesions, all the things that happen at the lymphatic system or the fascia system, you're actually looking at those lesions becoming ways that somebody might have to get their hands onto you, but we're trying to get you to the point where we're going after the why are the lesions there in the first place. 100%. So it's Graston or doing other techniques on you, we would rather say, yes, get that done, but you better do these exercises first to make that practitioner's job easier. Because Sean, can you imagine if every one of your athletes walked into your office and said, I did 20 of these, 20 of these, 20 of these, all in this same position here, creating the movement and the relationship in that hip joint while the spine was responding, and then have them come in for hands-on adjustments with you. Can you imagine what result? A, you don't have to try to come over the obstacles up front, but B, where would you be able to take them as it relates to places to go normally?
Well, I think that's a key concept there. It's literally like chiseling at the situation. So we become snipers at that point. It really gets to the bottom of what's going on with you to help you excel even more. So they got all three of those. They've got the middle, they go out about 45 degrees and they go out even further.
Yeah, and then they get up, then into the kneeling position, because most people, Sean, are in this position where they stand here. I know you can only see half of me, but but they don't stand vertical like this. They're more like this.
Yep.
They kind of sway back, and then their upper back rounds over as a compensation. But when we kneel, and we teach a lot of this stuff in the PAS certification stuff, and I'm not here to sell them on that, but I want them to know that's what we offer to teach this kind of stuff. You're in this position kneeling. What can't you do kneeling? In this position, there's no bailing forward because you're stuck. So just that simple concept alone, and now go into the arm circles, which we've taught you guys before. Yeah, very simple. You're just gonna put your hands like this, shoulders down and back, and you're gonna circle forward 40 times in the kneeling position. And once you get to 40 of those, then you're gonna go palms up, shoulders down and back, and then circle up and back 40 times. And the key with this in the kneeling position is it traps the hip to become the major stabilizer. So if I said to you, if we hooked up biofeedback to your psoas and iliacus in this position, they'd be doing this because they're the stabilizer for the perturbance that's happening in the up part of the body.
And talk a little bit more, because I mean, the arm circles are so huge. Like, this is one thing that a lot of people too, is they tend to go back. We always say stay here or in front, especially for impingement purposes in the shoulder. Once the shoulder blades are back, that's going to be a positive thing. A lot of you, when you do your shoulder stuff, your scapulas are actually winging. They're coming up. It's a term we use in our side. Think of it this, your scapula is way too mobile in that sense. And so that comes forward, and your shoulder joint, this should be your mobile joint, tends to become stable. And now we're sitting here just, one, being inefficient, and two, possibly causing trouble and problems. And so you've got to have the proper movement. And that's why I love what Brian talks about, is giving you in the kneeling position, because we can take certain positions out and allow you to get into a proper posture. Because if you're in proper posture, right, Brian, you have a way better chance of succeeding in life and sport. So that's the key concept right there. Now, go ahead.
It has to be the foundation. Like if I could draw a circle and say, look, I'm biased. I've been with Egoscue and built this method with Pete over the last 30 some years. But you look at this and say, here's the foundation in the middle, and say, if I could just put in Egoscue right there. Remember, this is just me. This is how I teach my therapists. Egoscue's here, and everything else that tentacles off from that, I don't care what it is. It gets easier when the customer says, I have something to do with my success.
Yep.
And that's a very cool place to be versus going, Sean, fix me because I'm broken. Meaning, I'm broken, number one. Number two, you're in charge of fixing me, which means I've taken no, I hate the word responsibility because people don't need more on their plate right now, but they've taken no ownership to the identity that they've taken up with that symptom. Mm-hmm. Symptoms are just signals of something that could be off, and they're massive opportunities for learning.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing too is in this situation is I really feel like if you're one of my patients and you're not taking responsibility, I fire you. I'm like, look, I'm just not the doctor for you. I'm going to refer you to somebody else who is willing to put up with it, because whenever I have somebody sign on with a care plan with me, I'm like, look, these are my expectations. What are your expectations? And they've got to meet. And a lot of times, unless you feel this, and this is what I really love about corrective exercise, and I love the Egoscue method, is that you truly feel the difference. Like if you're a patient and you're just going in, getting work done, and leaving, and you're not feeling a difference, you're not seeing a functional difference, that's a problem to me. Because you've got to feel it. You literally got to feel what you're doing, so that way you know. It's kind of like a baseline, or it's like a red flag or a check engine light that pops up in your car when you're racing. That, okay, wow, okay, I can definitely see that my body's tending to get off. So you start being more mindful. I'm like, okay, where am I at this moment? I'm noticing that I'm running. Okay, my gait's off, or my body's off, or hey, I noticed that I can't do blank as quickly or as efficiently as I used to. These are things that need to catch up, and that's why doing your daily exercises, doing the tower that we'll get into next week with Brian, is so important, especially for the fact, this is what I love about Egoscue for me, is it really helps me slow down. Like that's the one thing I use it almost in my meditation, especially with my 90-90 on the chair, because it allows me to slow down. When we slow down, the parasympathetic nervous system turns on, and when that turns on, that's the feed and breathe system, and now we can actually relax, and we can relax, we restore, and when we restore, that's when we have the chance to perform better.
I will tell you, at the beginning of this, when we were talking about people not committing to themselves, remember one thing that we believe, and I know you and I have discussed this in detail too, people don't need more stuff on their plate. So to meet a person's needs, even if it's 2 exercises, with one of the major guys that I work with around the world, doing the motivational stuff and the strategic stuff that they're doing, there's nobody busier than that dude. I get it. My job is to not add more stuff to his plate. My job is to say, how can we strategize a way together for when you wake up out of bed, you do these 3 exercises, less than 3 minutes, maybe 5 at the most, if he chooses to go to static back, and then cold plunge, do some other stuff, things like that. But it is the basis for all movement up front, because posture is, I used to tell people, I know a lot of people don't believe in posture, but so many people are teaching and trying to trust it now, but they're fighting their way through the correction versus where the rescue is. And what I've loved about this, maybe it's because I'm just the laziest human on the planet, I get to relax and release the body back to its normal structure, which then re-engages the central nervous system, because muscle activation done correctly can correct the bony alignment, which then the messages coming back and forth up and down through the central nervous system say, I've learned a new pattern. I'm going to hold this. I'm not going to bail as far back as I'm normally going into this, which means sitting is no longer a problem. It's actually the trigger that got me to do something with my body. So sitting is a sport, train for it.
True. I love that. And I think the biggest thing too, you're going to hate me for this. Tell everybody how old you are.
I'll be 52 in June, but yeah, it's
the reason I say this, Brian, is like you've changed my mindset over the last 2 years working with me, and we're going to bring up the past here hopefully soon when we can get there. But you have blown my mind as a 52-year-old how well you move, and again, you and I are around some great people on performance. This is what sold me on it. This is what got me behind it. It has me doing it. Like I've got my guys to set over here. So hopefully you can try those 2. So try the toe tap test real quick at home. Do these 2 exercises and then retest your toe tap test. And let's see where you're at, because I think that's a really key concept. So far, you've been given your laying down with 99 yet, a couple of exercises last week. Now you've got the arm circles and you've got this new tool. What do you call that, Brian?
Sitting femur rotations. We're pretty simple folk over here because you're sitting and you're femur rotating. So we just said, let's call it sitting femur rotations. But some people would call it, like eyes wide with the windshield wipers, whatever it is. But the key movement, just like we do when we're standing, we say 5 degrees in. The key movement is that forward tilt of the pelvis and hold. Even if it means lean back on your hands a little bit more, because without that, all you're doing is rotating. And like this, you're just parking the car in a garage and tearing stuff up inside there.
So again, you want to make sure you're using your pelvis. You're not using this.
Yeah, you're basically sitting on your tailbone, bad posture. Your mom's going to yell at you, and then roll that pelvis forward, and that'll lift your rib cage up for you. Versus lifting the rib cage up, which can you imagine somebody golfing and going, I'm going to swing the golf club by doing this and this, or baseball going, I'm going to swing like this, versus my body already came through, and now my arms come through to swing the baseball bat.
And just to give you guys an idea, those are 2 big killers in the sport. The one thing that he just demonstrated is called early extension. Number 1 killer to lower back in golfers. And then we usually start to see casting, or we don't get a good plane line with our bat when we're talking about hitting. So these definitely affect performance when we're looking at sport, but more importantly, we want to think about how it's affecting you right now in quarantine. So take those together. What we'll do is next Tuesday, Brian and I will jump on again, and we will go over a very cool concept. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but you're not going to want to miss it, because I think that I kind of know where we're going to go. But tune in next Tuesday at noon Pacific, and we will give you some more. And then if you have any ideas or things that you're struggling with at home that you want help with, make sure you let Brian and I know, and we'll bring that into this as well.
And those of you that are, that's a great concept, especially because we're going to talk about some breathing stuff later. But because we know what's out there in the press and everything else, it should be called the depress, because that's what it does to people. The press is depressing everybody. What we have to realize, and yes, they're feeding some good information, but a lot of it is, inflammatory. Bottom line, we've got to get ourselves to a point where we have an ability to feed through some of the stuff that's being sent at us on a daily basis. And when your body is collapsing underneath you and you're losing your ability to play golf and you're losing your social scene because you can't even go to the gym anymore right now, when that was a big part of your life. I have friends in the fitness world here. Orange Theory took a beating in California.
Yeah.
Because everybody, and I have a bunch of coaches and trainers. Carmen Belafonte is one of the best that's out there. And she and I have talked about things because that company is going to come back with a vengeance. There's no question about it. They're coming back. Hold on, my alarm's going off.
No, it's okay. I think this is just a good segue into saying, look, we've given you a couple tools to go play with today. Do it. Remember, if there's ever major pain when you're doing it, stop. You probably need to go see somebody and have it looked at a little bit more. If you're in consistent pain and it's not going away, make sure you check out a chiropractor or physical therapist right now to take pressure off of the system, the urgent care and emergency rooms. And there's distant healthcare. You can reach out to one of the Agosti practitioners. I know Brian, you can DM him, DM me, and we'll tell you how to take some photos. And we'll throw it over to a team member, and we'll send you some corrective exercises from there. So that being said, Brian, I love you, buddy. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody's time.
All right, cheers, mate.